Hello, this is a video, and this is a video about another video about the last subject for me in sculpting. And that last subject is what happens if we have a situation where the sculpting would cause a repayment to be negative. And I think it's pretty clear to find examples of that. Now, the biggest example I have is with batteries. What I understand about batteries, now you can help me, is there's this kind of funny debate and confusion. Now I'm going to open this file. And this is the following. What's the real lifetime of a battery? What's the real degradation of a battery? And you see these estimates from Lazard and others say, oh, the batteries can last 20 years. Maybe. And then you talk to people who really work on the chemistry of batteries and say, look, if you charge it and discharge it every period, it's a function of the life, the cycles of the battery, how you bring it up and bring it down. And you can get a life of batteries, but what you have to do is replace the batteries. So the batteries have larger degradation, meaning that sometimes if you're going to have to replace a chunk of the batteries or augment the batteries every, let's say, 3 years, you've got to kind of oversize the batteries. The batteries come down now. I didn't turn my camera on because I look like crap today. Shit, can't take it. So the degradation makes the batteries come down, and then in 3 years, we got to build a big CapEx. So we will have some up and down and up and downs. Now, these, I just opened the location where these are, and also if you go to the my website, and I'm a little embarrassed that I have MRA Revolver negative repayment here. And I'm going to put these files right here. And we got to understand, if we have a negative repayment, what we can do. We could allow the negative repayment to happen because we have these CapEx for the batteries. Now, I've got to fill this in and put the file here. We could do the worst thing ever, which is just reduce the debt size somehow. But if we have these batteries occurring, that's crazy. And then we can do something which in the case of batteries, it would be putting an MRA. I should have looked at this before. I certainly don't have much here, and I have to have some more discussion. I'll put some screenshots in this video here. And then finally, we can use a revolver. I put a working capital facility. I'll call it a revolver. Okay, so let's see how this would work. Now, I'm just going to make some points here. Okay, the first point is I'm trying to describe the problem with the batteries. The second point is let's just do some Excel. And this time, because if you use regular lookup, you go across and then it takes the last one, and we can't set something to 0. It's like a match, an index, but we want to use the match and set the match so it's an exact match. So we can use X lookup, which Eddie said, it's better to use interpolate lookup than that. And then we're going to use it a couple of times. Okay, no more match and index is obsolete. Don't use it anymore. Almost, maybe once or twice, but it's basically obsolete from the X lookup. Okay, and then we'll move to sculpting, where we have, in sculpting, you could call this negative amortization. Now, I don't see why you couldn't get the bank, and if you got 4 banks and you're trying to negotiate and you explain the problem to bank, why they wouldn't allow a negative repayment. But in lieu instead of doing this, we could use an MRA, a maintenance reserve account. Now, when I think about an MRA account, I think, oh, what a horrible thing to do, because you're sticking cash on the balance sheet that's not earning a return when you could have taken that cash and paid yourself a dividend. Think about the first period. The first period before we start, before we have our CapEx, we could pay ourselves a dividend with a Dscr difference. If the Dscr is 1.3 and we have some extra cash flow, we could pay ourselves a dividend. Instead, you got to take that money, slop it into some cash that's going to earn nothing. It's going to hurt your IRR. And how do we use the sum if and a little counter to do that efficiently? And then I stopped kind of putting things here. But then we're going to work through how a revolver could work. Okay, I can't type and talk at the same time. And to do this, we're going to compute the required CFADS in order to meet Dscr. So let's put an example. We have negative repayment because we have a really low cash flow year we have minus 200, okay, whatever. And our Dscr is 1.2, and our CFADS that leads to the negative repayment is, let's say, 60. What we need to do is we need a target let's put a CFADS deficit. And it's not that CFADS deficit is not the negative repayment. We need to get a Dscr, so we need to multiply that negative repayment up here. We need to multiply that negative repayment by 1.2 to get the CFADS deficit, and to get that we could put CFADS, and we could start with our 60, and then we could add the deficit, the revolver. Let's add draw, and then we're going to put that right in I'll call this EBITDA, just to, and we'll add this one and get the total CFADS with the draw, and then we can make sure that our whatever Dscr, let's just put that here as our 1.2, and now if we take the CFADS divided by 1.2, we'll get enough. This is our debt service, and if we had some interest before, this will be enough to meet our Dscr, and we have to allow the draw on the revolver to be part of the CFADS. Now, the difficult part is not that, but it's kind of important to be able to work through and derive the amount you need. But then we have to repay our draw, and we could repay our draw our revolver. We could repay it kind of as a cash sweep, put it down below CFADS, the repayment. That will limit our dividends, but so what? We've got extra amounts. Or we could try to put the repayment as a subtraction here. So I'm going to try this both, and at the end of the day, we're going to test if the options. So really, I should put our options. One is allow negative repayment in sculpting. 2 is use MRA and have cash sleep. And 3 is use a revolver which may have cash sweep. Now, when we do this, this time I'm going to focus just on a couple of Excel things. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but make sure you can efficiently model. So I've already got kind of a complete example, and I'm going to redo a couple of these things just to give you a sense of the X lookup and the SUMIF, using that efficiently, because frankly I have trouble with this, but I'm an total, I'm an old man, so I maybe you don't. And this MRA makes you sleep, but this revolver isn't a great thing either, because if it comes along with a cash sweep, no, cash sweeps aren't good either. We basically have to repay it, and we're going to have to pull money out of dividends earlier than when we wanted. So what it really highlights, this whole example really highlights, is the example highlights trying to come up with creative and interesting solutions rather than just be a mechanical, bureaucratic sales shit ad. You want to really think, okay, now I've got this MRA with sleeping. That's what kind of the natural automatic way of thinking is. Can I do better? Can I get the bank to just allow a little bit of a negative amortization? No big problem with that. Push them around. Or if I can't do that, can I structure a revolver where instead of putting the cash early, I wait until I need it? I might have to pay a commitment fee. I wait until I need it. Once I need it, I borrow it. I put that borrowing as part of CFADS and tell the bank, come on, make a CFADS like we have a working capital loan. That's a positive for CFADS. I meet your debt structure because I have this commitment. I meet your Dscr. You don't have any negative repayment anymore, so shut up. And then how do we repay that revolver over time? Now, I'm not sure if I should give you the answer. I don't know if I should tell you what's going to happen at the end. Can't think of that stupid word anymore. So in this case, I'll just leave it here. What we're going to do is now I've made a really simple example here in terms of the cash flows, and in this case we have the cash flows, and each 3 years we have a battery replacement. Okay, and we get a project IRR of 6.52%, and like normal, if we put the debt cost, let's put the debt cost and get that from our financing. So we have more than the debt cost. Now it's totally possible that and in this case, what I did with the debt cost is I left it fixed. So we put an 80% debt to capital, and then what we do is we use sculpting to back into the Dscr that allows us to get this 80%. Now if we increase this and that's almost too much, well, it's a lot, okay, and then we put a higher Dscr because we have so much cash. If we reduce this, and maybe I'm going to change this and change this to 1 instead of 10 because we're doing too much of an increment. So if we keep going down, then our equity IRR is really low, and our Dscr that is implied goes down, okay? And and right now it seems that if we do this revolver, this revolver, this gives us the highest IRR. And this is with fixed debt. So let's see how to mechanically do this. And then I struggled with trying to make a picture of the negative debt. So we have this CFADS that's going down, and when it's going down, if we have negative debt, we want to make a negative repayment. We want to make a negative repayment. So this is our repayment. It goes down and down, and then this is our interest. Well, our interest just goes down anyway. So I was struggling with that because you don't want necessarily these things where it goes diagonally, but I won't waste a lot of time. And we could either put an MRA, which says you put this cash to be sleeping, and then you've got to figure out how to pay off this revolver. So you borrow it and then pay it down and keep paying it down. And now I thought, well, maybe we could go through step-by-step rules on this and see how it works. But I think the principles are so much more important. So now let's work through our model. I think I'm going to, well, let's make these a little wider just to get them all wide. And I put some inputs here. So Control-Alt-C, I have my generic macros open. I don't have a sum function. I'm going to put the thing in column B. And I'm going to make this automatic so it figures out that you have six rows here. I haven't done that, and I'm going to make that black, and I'm going to first, well, okay, I'm going to first reset. When I do the reset, I just kind of screwed up, and then, oh, it left at 6. It left this B. Okay, and then I'm going to do the coloring just to show you what's an input. So we have, now I want to first work through if we have these battery replacements and they're not the same cost all the time. Now don't worry about how long this silly thing is taken because it's stupid sharing the screen when I said that so many times. Please try this. There we go. It's free. What the hell? And some people from EY or something won't try it because they got their own little techniques. And if you have a good suggestion for me to make it better, but if you like the rest of this and making it free, okay. Now, so oops, maybe I should have gone to 8. But so what we have is this time I made one case where we replace the batteries every 4 years. So I just put this is the year of replacement, okay, and I just added 4, which I should have maybe colored that one, and then we either have a flat 80 each period, so we have our EBITDA, but then this is a big dent in the EBITDA. Obviously, we'll only be left with 10. And then we'll have negative repayment, or we 60, or we change this around. And how do you model if you have an input like this with it changed and the years also changing? So this time I added 4 years, 5 years, and hopefully 3 years. I did 3 years. So I changed the timing. And then we just used an index, and I just put a little whatever drop-down box for that. So right now, let's change and make the timing different. Now it's taking scenario number 3, and let's make the expenditures varying. Okay, so now if I wanted to figure out which year my battery replacement, that's 3, 5, 7. I want to make this the battery replacement period. I want to put a little flag for the battery replacement period, And the way I'm going to have to do this, but I'm just going to use I'm going to use the X lookup, which is kind of like match. I put X lookup. Okay, I'm a little nervous. And then I'm going to look up on this one. This is the timeline. I get to explain this good while I'm going through. I just made a timeline instead of the years. And of course, this could be a year or a period. And then I'm going to compare it to that. So this would be like using the lookup. And then I have to put some other number here. I'm going to put the same number here. It doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to put 0 for if it's not found. And for the match model, I want an exact match this time. So I'll put this in Shift Control R, and then it gives me the numbers. And I'll just say, well, whenever it's not equal to 0, let's just put it like this. And then if you are an idiot enough to do an if statement on this, shame on you. Shame on you. So then I press Shift Control B and Shift Control R. And then I've got my period. That's our introduction to the X lookup. And then let's go down here. So we've got our basic level of EBITDA, and we've got our initial CapEx. But then we're going to put this varying, this varying amount of expenditure. And then let's use the X lookup again. Let's go up here and put our period in here, and then we'll compare that period to the array we just did, which is this one, this one, and then we'll put our expenditure in. Okay, so that's just how we can do this. And of course, I forgot to put the comma 0. That kind of works just like that. And now we use 0 instead of 1. If we used 1, I think it would be just about a regular lookup. Not exactly sometimes, but it's about. Okay, so then we have our expenditure, and of course we can make that just a flat expenditure. So now our EBITDA is this. Okay, perhaps I'll Shift Control right arrow twice, Shift Control G. I don't know why people hate this underline like that more. And then we got a IRR, and we compare that to our cost of debt. So that's our operations and how we always start. And let's make this 4%. Let's make it more extreme. Every time we're doing anything like this, we're really comparing the project IRR to the interest rate of the debt IRR, if you want to be fancier and include the fees. And then I put a debt repayment flag and all the rest of it. And then I said, okay, well, this is just normal kind of stuff I've done too many times. Here's our target. And so we're going to take this times the CapEx somewhere. I put 1,000 CapEx. And we get this much debt. And then I said, okay, well, I don't know why I did this one. This is if I have a flat payment. Alt-MD, let's see, if you press Alt-MD and take it away. So the Dscr is the NPV of the cash flow, including these negative or very low periods in which we have battery degradation and battery cost. We take that, and then we get a Dscr that will make everything work. And don't, oh God, this test we just did had a negative had a thing where you're just supposed to do a repayment that just stops. It's far more efficient to get the debt like this. And then we put our 800 debt, that's our balance, and then we have our total debt service using the Dscr, and our repayment is interest plus repayment, or debt service minus interest equal repayment. And we can check that goes down to 0, and it goes down to 0. And we have a really low debt service, and we have these things here. We have this negative repayment here, and the bank's going to say, oh, you can't do that. And now I'm going to put the scenario back to let's put 3 years. Let's make it the worst kind of case, and let's put a equal expenditure. And now we have bigger negative repayments. By the way, why didn't I do it like this? If you press Shift Control Q, it'll show you the negative number. So if you notice, I don't type as fast as you maybe and all that, but if you notice, I do not ever use a paintbrush or this Control 1 or anything like that. What a waste of time. I just had a little session with a friend of mine, kind of a friend, and yeah, he's never paid. Okay, but whatever. He kept on going so slow by going into the paintbrush. I couldn't stand it. Okay, now let's set up our MRA account. Now the MRA account is a little bit trickier. We have this, and we have to make sure that we have enough. Now I should do this. I'm going to change it back to a 3, 4, and 5, and I'm going to change this to a varying expenditure. So we have different expenditures and different time periods. Okay, and we have to make sure and have enough in our MRA account. Now, if you got really fancy, you'd say that's not exactly correct, because if you make a big CapEx, you get to depreciate that. Your taxes get reduced, and you should do this on an after-tax basis. And with the depreciation, you can be a little more careful, but banks might be really simplistic. So we have this battery replacement period. I just did it again. I didn't want to do that. And now once because I think we had it up here anyway. So then I say, okay, let's just take this one. I hope, yeah, let's just take this one and add not this one, but the prior one. Okay, and that's that counter will, oops, just a minute. I think I did this wrong. Oh no, let's take this one. Let's try this one. Maybe I don't need this next one. And then let's put a sum if. Now, you need this one to be at the date of the replacement. And that's what I want. So if you put equal, and so I'm counting that, right? So we've got period 0. No, it's got to be the next period. It's got to be the next period. We need this one, and this has to be over here because we have to count 1, 2, 3, and then start again here. So this one, I'm going to do this one like this, and put I'm going to put it backwards. I'm going to put it frontwards. Sorry, I always get this wrong. So now we have it. We count 50, and then we count 60, and then we count this one. And I'm sorry. And then we do, I'm going to practice without looking at it. I just cheated and looked at it. If I put sum if, and then I go up to this counter line and take the whole line. Sum if. I take this one. I take the whole line, and maybe I just did it wrong. I think I did it wrong. And take this one again, and then I take the whole line, and I'm just going to do I'm just going to set the MRA up during the repayment period. So that 50, I multiplied it by the repayment period. I'm sorry about that. And I should also multiply this by the operation period. Okay. And so I have 3 50s, and it accumulates to the amount we want. And then I do another X lookup because I want to see, and I do an X lookup on the year always, and I go up here, and up here I put the periods. After we do this, we put the periods as usual, and then we put, well, how long are we have in between periods? So I have 3 for the first period, 4 for the second, and the next 5, and that's a little bit of a pain to do. And I forgot to, I'm so used to do regular, go 0, 0. And that's how easy it is. And just a minute. Oh, I should have. If I press Shift Control S, I can't do it again. X lookup. Just 1 second. I'm about to get myself in trouble. Sorry, I went too fast. We put X lookup, and this time we go up to this counter, which could be 0, 1, or 2. That's our lookup period, and then based on that lookup period, we compare it to this lookup period, which has a 0, and then we compare that to the timing of how many periods it takes in our replacement. So I did that wrong, and I couldn't kind of undo it because of my bad thing. And then we can take this number and divide it by that number, and we get the amount we have to spend. And of course, I wonder if I'll get used to this ever. Okay, and why? Just a minute. I'm looking up this one. And I needed to use this one in the X lookup. This is our first period, second period, third period. Sorry about that. Okay, maybe I was afraid of this, but I'm not that afraid. So let's just go back, and I think the easiest way to do this will be up here. Okay, maybe you're saying, you shouldn't have used the X lookup. Okay, there. This time I'll put 0.0, like that, really quickly. Okay. Whoops. Shift Control R. Finally. Okay. And notice what happens. We took this, then divided by 4. This one had 4 periods, but this one had 5 periods, and this one had 5 periods. So it's a tricky little thing. And then that's the amount of contributions we have to our Dscr, our MRA. And so we take that money out of the right now I have a 13.3% equity IRR, by the way. Now we take that money out, and we have the this, okay? And now we've got to be consistent, okay? So we said we needed a Dscr up here of, where is my 1.51 in order to get this 80% to work, and that depends on all the rest of this stuff. So let's put now we get our CFADS. What am I doing? I really just needed to get this thing. I'm sorry. This is our EBITDA. Oh, we took our EBITDA. No, we subtracted the battery expenditures. And then we subtracted the contribution, but we added back the withdrawal from our MRA, and we get this kind of number. Now this time it changes because we've got our different contributions. So I'm going to go back to a simpler case. I'm going to go back to the 3-period case and the expenditure. Okay, so this time we have a flat. Now we have a flat CFADS, and then this time, I hope I did this right, then we get the CFADS over the repayment period, okay, but we still want 80% debt. We can take the NPV, which I should have really mentioned before, NPV of the CFADS, take the NPV of the CFADS divided by the debt. I should have made that a little more elegant this time, because we have lower, I guess, because of the, before this time it was 1.31. We get a slightly different target debt service to get the same amount of debt because of the timing, because of the NPV calculations. And we could have proved this to you, but I didn't bother. And we just get the equity cash flow, which is our CFADS minus our debt service. And that CFADS accounts for the money you get in, money you pull out, and everything else. And then we get 8.31 with the MRA with no interest and 8% there. So it's a little bit lower. I was kind of hoping it would be a lot lower, but whatever. Let's put our other expenditure in. And so this time this was 10 and this was 11.32. 11.32, 10.84. Not a dramatic difference, but okay. So maybe the first it's not that bad. And if you maybe added interest income to this, it would be even less bad. Okay. Now let's move to our potential revolver. Now I said, okay, let's take this Dscr. Is this one even going anywhere? This one, I just, let's take. I'm going to take the. No, I'm going to leave that Dscr. I'm going to leave that Dscr. Now, if we have this Dscr, we need this, and I'm using the MRA situation, so we need this much debt service in each period because I use that, okay? So this is CFADS. We're just multiplying it instead of dividing it. That's how much CFADS we need. Ooh, this is a good theme. This is a good time to stop and start yelling. If you start working on goal seek solvers, pushing things, deriving things, pushing without making an equation, oh, it's so irritating. If you go to ChatGPT and say, oh, I want a macro that pushes something, ooh, how horrible, rather than doing things a little bit elegantly. Now, then we saw that we had 90 CFADS, but then it goes down to this one. So that means the difference between these two is how much deficit. We have a deficit in our CFADS. And for me, this is in part about explaining things. Okay. And so now we can just use a maximum of the negative number of that to get, this is the additional amount of CFADS we need. And that's all okay. Let's just stop here. So then we go down and we borrow that money. And when we borrow that money, we put that as part of our, kind of like with a little bit analogous to a working capital facility, or even that MRA a little bit. Here's how much extra we get. And if we got a commitment, like a credit card, I say this is like a credit card. We borrow the money, and we have a limit on how much we borrow, and we would have to pay a commitment fee. No question about that. And then we have to repay it. Well, how much can we repay? Well, the amount we can repay, and this is really, for me, the struggle, is we needed a 90. When we backed into this thing, we needed 90. That means we have 20 extra, okay? And we're going to take that 20 extra we have and repay our loan. And then we go up here, but don't go down here. So we're going to repay it. But we're not going to repay the full loan, because we're going to put the interest we have on the revolver itself. And you think, oh, that sounds like a circular reference. And I thought it was, but it's not if you do it really carefully. So this is how much we could repay. And then just like a cash sweep, we don't repay if we don't have an opening balance. So you test the opening balance against the repayments. And that's how much we repay. Now, I made the interest on this revolver exactly the same, and that's just our interest. So you can walk through this. It took me about 10 times to do, of course, to really get it. And then we have our debt service, and now our equity cash flow is, if we look at it really carefully, it's EBITDA. We get to add back the revolver draws. We got to repay the revolver. We got to pay the interest on the revolver, and we got to pay our initial debt service anyway. And when we do that, we get 12.6 compared to 10.4 compared to 11.32. Okay, and you can fight with me, and you can say, put a commitment fee, try something else, or you know, when you make a presentation of this, you can look at the IRRs and you can see, well, this revolver balance got pretty big because we couldn't really pay it all off, and we had to wait till we get the tail of to get to our tail to really no, that's wrong. We got here and then we paid it off at the tail. Okay, now I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to save this file, and that I'm going to just add one because I don't want to make too many videos on this because I don't think anybody will really watch this stuff. Let's go to another sheet. I hope I don't show you anything really bad. I get scared that I'm going to show you something. Okay, then I could redo the video. Okay, so this time it's a little bit different. And this time instead, so it's a very, very similar case, but this time instead I gotta pause the video right now because I drank too much coffee, and you know what that means. Okay, I'm back. Oof, feel better. Now, this time, I used the same framework, but I made one big difference. We have a Dscr target. And why don't I do this? Just to practice, why don't we go ahead and make a little spinner button around that? And why don't we make it go from the minimum value of 100, not 1, to the maximum value of, whoops, what's going on here? What are you doing? Oh, bonjour, monsieur. 100 to 300. And we go and make a different case, and we put this here and press OK, and this time let's go to the Dscr. So this time, instead of defining the debt based on this 80%, I'm going to delete that. Alt-MD. It's used here, but this, I hope this Alt-MD is not. This is probably used here. This one, I'm going to be really brave. Do I get a bunch of references? I don't want this one. I haven't got any references, right. And I don't want this one. Still no. Ooh, that was dangerous to do. I use Alt-MD and then and now we have just the Dscr target, which is this number divided by 100. Now, if the Dscr is 1, we're going to have kind of a crazy result. We'll have too much debt. And, okay, and okay, I was speaking too quickly. We can't. Oh no, the total debt is up here. And the Dscr better be this number. Oh, I should turn the TV, not the TV, it's a video. I should turn that off. And do I still get, now I just got to put a much higher Dscr in. Okay, okay. And this Dscr result is irrelevant because we're driving everything by the debt size, and we have the same thing. Now, I'm not going to go through the MRA scenario, and I was kind of hoping that if we start changing this around, we might get some different answers. Okay, and what I'm going to primarily look at this time, we'll look at some of the results, but I'm going to primarily, so remember we had 1,000 of CapEx in, so we're at 90-some% debt, and whoops, now we're way too high. And we can see that this number and this number, it's better to have negative sculpting in this case if I've done things wrong, right. And in some cases, it's this MRA can beat this revolver, and let me explain why. So let's get it to a. Ooh, this scenario doesn't have a bigger deal. Let me put the debt interest rate here. Let's just do a little sensitivity. I'm doing this while I don't have. Maybe what I did, that's too low. Let's put a 5% interest rate, and then we've got to increase our thing a little bit. This time, this time it's a little bit lower. Oh, come on. And the MRA is always a little bit worse. But we'll leave that, and I'm going to put 50% here. No, that didn't work. Just a minute. I'm going to pause instead of running through this, although I'm not really that sad about what we just did. Okay, I just had a good lesson. When the results, you have a feeling something is wrong, check them. Now, what I did is I added a bunch of sums, and I found a conceptual error I made. And I'm gonna. You see, it says before sum function and all this time. Now I'm gonna, because Hetty told me to do this, and she said add a little color for the sum function. Maybe if you have a suggestion that this should be a different color. So what I did was I rechecked it, and I had a little bit of a conceptual mistake. And what I'm going to do is walk through right now. If this stupid thing ever gets done, I'm going to walk through what I did and the results. And I think the results are interesting. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're not excited about this. Maybe you're one of these people who want to watch a basic kind of videos because that's where the views come, not kind of from this stuff. Who cares? I try not to look at that stuff. Okay, and so here's I redid our inputs and our color, and now it found that this is the sum column, and I had a EBITDA of this and this, and when I checked the equity cash flow, it wasn't making sense. The sum of the equity cash flow, this is negative sculpting. So again, we allow a negative sculpting, not allowed. This is our MRA where we did the counter, and we have our MRA balance, and then we made our graph of the MRA balance. Now we get to the interesting one. Now you might have just seen the graph, but the interesting one is, okay, let's say we get to this negative sculpting period. We put this maximum of that negative 59 or 0. That's the negative sculpting. We're not going to allow that. Instead of that, we're going to make sure our debt service and our senior debt is more than that. Well, how can we do that? We could do that with the MRA, or we could try to add we could take the CFADS, add that. We get an adjusted CFADS that adds back this, and then we have a new debt service. Our new debt service doesn't have the negative amount. And then I made an opening balance and a closing balance. Now, I left this the same. We could change this, but then it got a little bit funky. I could put more debt in because we don't have that negative debt service, and we're saying we have more CFADS, but I'm tempted to do that. Well, I'm not going to, because if you do that, you'll get even better result. And is there? I think I had a little conceptual problem, and so we borrow this money, and then we can't really repay it, because if we repaid it and called the repayment part of the debt, then our Dscr, which we're computing down here, would be too low. We can only include the revolver draws. So for the repayments, we go downstairs and we put some interest. Oh, I forgot to put the interest rate here. Then it's going to be not so good. then we get some interest on the revolver. I take that out of the CFADS and I see how much is left over, and let's have a cash sweep to pay off this revolver. Now we could put all sorts of cash sweeps. Oh, but then I did this. Okay, I gotta relook at the Dscr. Oh shit. Okay, I'm gonna leave it for just a minute. I'm just gonna leave it. No, I'll correct it on the when I finally put it up on the website. I'm just gonna take you to the end because this is a long enough video anyway. So right now we have the kind of three scenarios. If I put a 50% cash sweep here, we pull that return down. If I put 100% cash sweep, then we pull it all the way down and we're getting a low result from our revolver. So it all, but if I put a 0 here and maybe a 50% right at the end, then I can get a higher result. And I'm just going to stop this video. It's too long anyway, and I really getting that revolver modeled, I think it's a little tough. I thought it would, yeah, it's about what I expected in a way, but you can do it, and then you can hopefully get a boost on your equity IRR. Now I'm going to save this file. I'm going to put it in that place in the website, and I'm going to fix it, but I'm not going to fix it right now because I'm going to make another video anyway. Okay, and so let's stop this. That was kind of a really shitty ending to this video because I didn't have exactly the right Dscr. I would have lost sleep if I had left that ending. Sorry. Here, I just resized the debt. We got exactly the same Dscr every single period, and that was really the idea of that. Now, when I did that, I had to change the size of the debt a little bit. Up here, I had to change the size of the debt. Okay, and now we get, once we change the size of the debt, we get that consistent. And then, depending again on how you structure the cash sweep, if you pay it all up front, we get a penalty because we have a cash sweep. If you could make this 0 for a while and then wait till the debt is paid off, then you can get a higher. So again, you have to figure out how to structure it. Maybe we'll put 30%. And then we get a higher. Again, the MRA costs you. This gets you back, not all the way. That's the best result. That's sculpting. And now I'll end the video. I won't feel quite as bad, and I'll put the file up there.